Planning is one of the core components to survival in today's society, and everyone talks about their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan. What is your plan for this, that, and the other? And I want to talk about today why we need to include strategy and how to include strategy in your plan to make sure that you win, because sometimes a plan is just simply not enough, especially when we're living in such a competitive world. Strategy to make sure you're hitting the goals that you want to hit is vital to ensure that you're getting to the destination that you want to go. There's been many times that I've made plans and I didn't have a strategy in mind when I was creating the plan, and I ended up achieving the goal that I wanted, but the goal was not strategically putting me in a place where I could be successful, even though I hit the markers for the qualifiers that I was looking for, because I didn't understand the strategy behind what I was trying to accomplish. I only understood the milestones that I needed to achieve. This can be really beneficial with everything that's going on in the economy today, with the uncertainty. If you're trying to achieve something new, if you're trying to create a new stream of income for yourself, if you're trying to create a new life for yourself, this is something that can help you prepare for that. So that way you can start venturing down the road of creating the life that you want to live, but having that strategy in place to make sure that you're hitting the goalpost that make the most sense for the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Whenever we're making a plan, we want to define a clear and motivating goal. So you have to be very specific, and it needs to be something that inspires you. What are you aiming for, and why is that inspiring to you? Make sure there's passion behind it, drive, so that way you're feeling fulfilled as you're trying to achieve this goal. When you are being specific, you need to keep in mind that the specification of this goal is going to allow you to measure the goal, so that way you can track your progress along the way and make sure that you're hitting the milestones that you need. When you're wondering what is going to be the measurable part of your goal, you need to think about what type of evidence or numbers are going to suggest that you're making progress. When we're thinking about things like weight loss, for example, you can look at the scale for your specific markers, but that might not be in line with your strategy if you're going through like a body recomp. So instead, you want to look at inches, and that can be your measurable goal that you're tracking. So depending on whatever that specific goal that you're trying to achieve is, you have to align the measurable outcomes with that specification of the goal that you're trying to meet. You can set a deadline for achieving this goal. I don't necessarily set deadlines with goals, because I am somebody who is going to have deadlines for myself in every single day. And I think that's more beneficial for the way that I function. But having a rough deadline, if it's something that is important to you, maybe you're on a time crunch for something, can be beneficial. For weight loss, for example, I would never put a timeline on it. I would just make sure that every single day I'm doing the right things and I'm hitting those measurable goals on a daily basis to achieve my goal, because I have faith that eventually I will hit my goals if I'm doing the strategy on a daily basis. But sometimes we do want to have deadlines that we have to adhere to, and some people work better with deadlines. So if you are somebody who works better with deadlines, make sure that you set a winning deadline, choose a timeline, but make sure that it's realistic. Make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to achieve that goal, so that way you don't feel defeated if it's something that's just not achievable. So once you've defined whatever your goal is and the motivation behind it, instead of creating a to-do list for your day-to-day basis, this is where we're going to go into the strategy piece of it. And we want to build a strategic roadmap rather than a list of tasks that we have to do because we think that's going to get us to our goal. An example of times where I've done this is like when I was growing my TikTok on social media, I was like, okay, I have to post 3 to 6 times every single day, because that's when I was growing my TikTok. That was really popular. But I didn't have like a strategy behind the type of content I wanted to make or the type of audience that I was trying to cultivate. So even though I was posting 3 to 6 times a day, I wasn't bringing in a cohesive audience that was going to be somebody that was interested in my overall niche. It was more ad hoc posts, following trends and following, things that I just thought were funny without any type of strategic goal that was placed behind them. You really need to make sure that you're thinking about the type of overarching goal that you have and making sure that those strategies that you're putting in place are leveraging the right output that you're looking for. When you're putting this strategic roadmap together, you're going to want to identify key leverage points. So what actions will create the biggest results fastest? You want to be efficient. You want to do minimal work for the biggest output. If you're somebody who does content, for example, maybe you're starting a YouTube channel, maybe you are more interested in doing like really big deep dives. So for you, your actions to create the biggest results fastest are going to be putting a lot of effort into one video, where maybe there are other types of content like video game channels where you are looking to put a lot of videos out there and the content is more for entertainment, so you don't really have to do as much legwork on the research and editing, and you can achieve, markers like posting once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. So understanding your audience, understanding the output that you're looking for, and making sure that that's in alignment with what's going to lead you to the biggest results fastest is key. Once you've understood and created the actions that will create the biggest results fastest, like if you're on a weight loss journey and you're trying to lose weight, eating whole foods is a really good example of this as well. Break the goal into strategic steps. So focus on moves that create momentum, not just busy work. You're going to have to build up to achieving the goals that you're setting for yourself. You're not just going to go 0 to 100. That doesn't work. You're going to fatigue outward. You have to make this something that is maintainable, something that can ease you into the process, and breaking out that goal into strategic steps on a daily basis is going to help you create that momentum to push you further down the path to be successful in your goals. As you're doing this, you want to order the steps for maximum impact. So what should be tackled first to make the next steps easier? Prioritizing the way that you go about this is really important, because prioritization is going to make sure that you're getting enough time back from your day, you're moving as efficient as possible, and that you're tackling the most important things or the easiest things first, depending on the direction that you're going. One way to do this, I like to do the smallest task first, because then I build momentum to do the biggest task last. Sometimes if I have more energy in the morning, I'll do my biggest tasks first, my biggest to smallest, because then I get fatigued out throughout the day. So it just depends on your preferences, but you want to make sure that you're ordering steps for maximum impact, and you can do this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. As you're creating this strategic roadmap, you need to keep in mind, what are your power sources? What types of resources, relationships, and skills do you need to accomplish this strategic goal? Resources can include things like tools, platforms, materials. Do you have everything that you need? For example, if you're starting a YouTube channel, you're going to want to get something like Canva to create thumbnails. You're going to want recording equipment. You're going to want to understand what type of equipment is going to work best for this type of content that you're making. Editing software, if you're going to be heavy on editing. Understanding which tools and platforms are going to be best for what you're trying to achieve. So doing research is going to be very beneficial into this specific type of goal that you have, looking at other ways people have achieved this goal and taking that data and creating your own based on your preferences, but understanding how other people were able to achieve this. Relationships are a big part of this. You can find mentors, or you can just research people. I research a lot of people that I will probably never meet, because honestly, I can learn from everyone. Being humble in that process and being willing to learn is really key. If you're trying to be strategic, you have to understand you don't know the strategy. Like, if you knew the strategy, you would have already implemented it and done it. That's how I think about it. But if you're going about this journey and you're trying to create a strategic plan, you have to look at other people who came before you. And if you have access to mentorship, that's awesome. But in today's world where we have the internet, like, everyone has access to like study and research people. You can go on Reddit, you can create a forum, you can ask questions. There's no dumb questions in trying to create a strategic plan for yourself, because it's better to understand things to the depth core of what it exists in, to not understand things and then get to your goal and understand that you like made a miscalculation. Because when I built my TikTok and I didn't do it in the way that I should have done it, like I should have researched more, and I researched a lot, but I learned a lot from not researching in certain areas. I got to my end goal and I'm like, this isn't even what I want. Like, this account to me is like not even useful, because I did this with the wrong strategy in place. And while I did create and cultivate a very big community, the community that I cultivated wasn't something that I was going to be able to sustain. And it's something that I should have kept in mind, because it wasn't something that was going to be long-term beneficial for my own life if I kept going down that path. So understanding how people have done this successfully and the types of people that are similar to you in the way that they prefer to live life is very beneficial. Researching them, researching people in the past, researching up and coming trends in all areas in which you're trying to achieve goals is extremely beneficial. And researching any type of science that's backing different claims, if you're doing something in a more a scientific background, but understanding that is a resource in itself is the way that you can study others and use them as mentors. This is going to give you a lot of clarity on the skills that you need to develop. You might already be developing these skills, but sometimes you have to develop these skills over time before you're going to be successful. But when I started making content, like I didn't know what I was doing. I just used Instagram. I knew I wanted to do content like since, I don't know, MySpace, because like I've always been that friend that was like online. Like I was online before people were online, and I loved social media. I thought it was so innovative. I thought it was so cool. But when I started TikTok, like I didn't know that type of style of content. I had never done that before. So I had to just start practicing. I had to learn the skill of talking in front of the camera. And guess what? It led me to be able to do YouTube, because now I'm really comfortable talking in front of the camera. But when I first started making YouTube videos, I was not comfortable doing this because this is long form. It's different. I'm having a conversation literally with my phone. It's not the same as talking to your camera for, I don't know, 2 minutes versus talking to your camera for an hour and cutting that down and editing and making sure that everything makes sense for the audience, being able to explain topics in depth so that way people are understanding what you're saying, even if your brain is like skipping a beat. It's a skill set that's taking time to learn, and I'm still learning it. The skills that you are going to need to achieve whatever goal it may be, you have to define those skills, and you have to understand how those skills will benefit you, and then you will implement them and start to build on top of that and build those skills. And you have to be patient during this process, because building skills takes time, but it's beneficial because once you build that skill, you'll have it forever. So having the patience and the self-discipline to build that skill is going to be absolutely key. Now that you understand what your objective goals are, what type of strategy you're going to approach with, and the types of resources and relationships and skills that you're going to need to cultivate, you need to build out a time-blocked action calendar. And so this is going to be hand in hand with the roadmap. Roadmap, you want to think more of like having these like milestones throughout time where you're trying to achieve these milestones. And when you're looking at a time-blocked action calendar, you're looking at a more day-to-day basis and assigning deadlines to every step so that way you can celebrate when you're hitting those deadlines. Making sure that you're understanding the anticipated time for maybe a skill build and what you want to achieve at a certain milestone, and being able to track that and measure that so that way you'll know when you need to adjust things. But even having that time-blocked action calendar for your daily focus, making sure that you're blocking out time for the specific tasks that you need to do on a daily basis is going to allow you to build momentum and implement the strategy that you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis, which is just going to compound and get you closer to the goal, while cultivating that strategy as almost like an internal process that you're doing inside of yourself that eventually you won't even have to think about, because you'll just be thinking in that strategic mindset. As you're building this time-blocked calendar, you want to make sure that you're staying flexible. You have to understand there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be resistance, and you need to anticipate those. Roadblocks and resistance are a sign that you're moving in a direction, and that's good. And understanding that roadblocks and resistance are just data that you can use to understand that you may need to pivot, you may need to adjust, or you may need to overcome some adversity. Anticipating these challenges by understanding what your days have looked like in your action calendar is going to allow you to see where you need to adjust, and also anticipate challenges further down the road, because you can see where your weaknesses are, you can see where other areas of your skill set will need to be cultivated, and it allows you to strategize solutions ahead of time when you start to learn your patterns and more about yourself as you go through this process. Because anytime you implement like a strategic plan, it's almost like a mirror to show you different areas of yourself that you can work on, you can grow, and you can cultivate, and that allows you to achieve even more as you move into accomplishing that goal and then setting new strategic goals for yourself down the road. Having a good idea of how others have overcome the adversity when they hit these roadblocks is super beneficial. Making sure that you have different options and you allow yourself the grace and the time to strategize to overcome that is going to be super beneficial. And being very compassionate to yourself is something that should be done, because if you get upset when you fail, then you're upset that you're growing, and that's not something that you want to bring into a winning strategy. A winning strategy takes humbling yourself and understanding like you're not going to be perfect. Even when you are the best of the best, like the most successful people in the world, no matter what they're doing, whether it's like raising children or having a farm or being a bajillionaire, whichever calling calls to you in terms of what success is, the people at the top are humble and they are willing to learn from all mistakes, other people's mistakes. And I would argue they do learn from other people's mistakes more, which allows them to make less mistakes. But you have to make mistakes along the way and fail. But you have to be curious about why you're making those mistakes. So that way you can be better at preventing those roadblocks down the road. A big part of being able to do that is having that feedback and adjustment loop. So making sure that you're having progress checks in place on a weekly basis, writing this down, journaling, recording yourself talking about it on walks. I mean, there's tons of ways that you can record this type of data, but data is going to be something that is so beneficial to understand if you're on the right track. Just like when you're going through a weight loss journey, you want to understand your inches or what's on the scale or take progress pics because you have to track your data. You have to understand the measurable output that you're trying to achieve and if you're getting closer to that goal. Understanding that through progress checks allows you to go through the process without getting too far down the road and not achieving what you want to accomplish and being able to adjust before it gets to a place where you can't really return from. So asking yourself, like, what's working, what's not working, where can I adjust? That is going to be a part of building that plan for resistance, but using the feedback loop and adjustment loop as a tool to help with that is going to be something that will help you yield faster results. Making sure that you course correct quickly and being ruthless about tweaking your strategy is going to be key because you really want to make sure that you're getting ahead of failure as you start to spot it. So the more you fail in life, something that I've learned at least, is the quicker I'm able to see failures in other areas, especially like when I was working in tech. I was a customer success manager. So like I always knew when like a customer was like gonna churn. Like it was like I had a sixth sense because I just knew I could pick up on these key little habits, these little behaviors within my customers where I could tell exactly what they were thinking and what they were going to do. And I was always right because I had failed before so many times and I had lost customers before and I hadn't closed the upsell deal and maybe I didn't do well at serving customers, that I got to a point in my career where I was able to learn and course correct quickly so that way I didn't have a domino effect of losing my whole book of business. So when you implement this course correction quickly and you're willing to be humble in that process, you're able to get real results faster rather than dragging yourself down a rabbit hole where results will never come, because you have to be willing to objectively look at what you're doing and make sure that you're doing it correctly in the way that you believe will allow you to achieve your goals. But when you're proven that's wrong, you have to be willing to adjust fast. And that's a whole point of learning. That takes accountability and visibility. Having accountability over yourself and when you do fail is vital. Having accountability of when you're not hitting milestones is vital, and understanding that feedback and making sure that you're implementing change so that way you can hit those milestones is going to be clutch. But you need to also create some type of pressure to ensure that you're performing. And that can be done through many ways. I personally am like a pressure cooker. I put my own pressure on myself. When other people try to put pressure on me, it doesn't work. Like I don't want other people to put pressure on me because that's not real, like for me. So for me, it's having big goals, wanting to achieve those goals, having objective targets for my life, and knowing what I want to accomplish with those goals puts that pressure and excitement on me and flips that on within me. But if you're not somebody who can do that internally yet, you could talk to a friend, have an accountability friend. You need to have something that is going to push you to want to do the action. I have ADHD, and so something that I did struggle with was creating that internal pressure because I didn't have motivation. I had to have motivation to do it. I would set like calendar schedules. I would have alarm clocks, but if I don't have that internal pressure, like I'm not going to do it. And so I started to habituate to all of these notifications, and they were rendered useless because I was unwilling to ignite that passion and pressure inside of me. And when other people tried to pressure me into it, I just simply got turned off by it because like, I don't know who you think you are telling me what to do. I just don't function that way. I had to create a persona of somebody who responded to pressure well. And that was a skill that I had to work on. Figuring out what triggers that pressure in you in a healthy way, not in a way that creates scarcity, not in a way that creates panic, but in a way that creates inspiration, a way that creates making you want to feel like you are becoming a better person every day. Like that's where you are going to be very successful. A lot of people who are very successful tend to have a more negative relationship with the pressure that's internal. And that's something that I also experienced, where you had like a horrible upbringing. And so you're in survival mode. But once that survival mode gets turned off, like you're not going to have motivation to do anything. And eventually, as you start to achieve your goals, that will get turned off. So you have to have a pressure that's sustainable, that's going to keep you going and allow you to maintain your progress, because you don't want to just have like a strategic goal that you hit and then you quit. You want to keep going and maintain everything that you cultivated and worked on. Tracking progress can give you that like inspiration that you're really hitting those goals, and that builds that momentum. And that's a really cool part about going through this process of growth and having a strategy to hit your goals, is that you're seeing what's working and it's like so exciting, and you're seeing what's not working, and like that's exciting because now you know you have to do things a different way. But being inspired by the progress and just using that data to push you down the right pathway is going to allow you to have that visibility, so you can adjust, so you can grow, so you can achieve your goals, while also allowing you to celebrate the wins that are stacking up time over time, because the longer you do this, the more wins you're going to see. Rewarding victory strategically is a really big piece of this, because that creates that good feeling. Like if you celebrate too much, there's a time and a place, right? Like if you are somebody who can't even get out of bed, then you need to celebrate getting out of bed, because that is your goal at this moment. But once you're able to do that, you're going to habituate to that celebration, and you're no longer going to need to celebrate doing it. It's going to become like a bare minimum. So as you compound wins over time, depending on what your goal is, you're not going to be celebrating things in the same way that you did in the beginning. And the beauty of that is because it's become so normal for you to win in that area every single day. So that's what it means to be strategically rewarding victories, is that you're rewarding your victories when it's something new and something that you need to accomplish, but you're struggling to accomplish, and positively reinforcing that behavior within yourself. But once you master that, you don't need to reward yourself anymore, because it's an innate part of who you are now. It's something that you've integrated into your core way of functioning towards achieving this goal. And so you need to objectively look at the next reward and the next win that you're trying to achieve in that plan that you've built, to understand what the next step is, and then start strategically rewarding that step, so you can get into a place where you're accomplishing that step consistently over time. For me with YouTube, the way that I did this is like I picked my YouTube name. That was so cool. It took me so long to do it. I figured out like what I wanted to talk about. That was something that was taking me so long to do. So the closer I would get to it, I started rewarding things that I liked, and I started to ignore things that I didn't like. And then eventually like I bought my equipment and I rewarded myself for this. And like these seem like such silly things, but I was in a place of such deep, dark depression and such burnout that I literally couldn't even function. And so buying equipment was like a big thing for me, because it was so much decision fatigue. I couldn't really cipher through all the decisions that I needed to make, but being able to make one decision at a time became something that I started to do very naturally. So I stopped rewarding myself for one decision at a time. Then I put together an action plan for how much output that I wanted to do. Putting that plan together was super rewarding. So I celebrated that. Now when I put plans together, like I'm not celebrating that because I just keep putting plans together. Like it's something that I've already relearned and ingrained in my process of being strategic towards achieving my goals. Well, then I went into this place where I was like, okay, I'm going to post once a week. So I started posting once a week, and I rewarded that. I did it for 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, this is something I can do naturally. I'm going to do 3 times a week. Now I've been posting 3 times a week for like 2 months. I'm not celebrating every single time I make a video now. Now I'm looking at ways that I can target types of content that is going to be more beneficial and allow me to serve others and help others along their pathway with the things that I've experienced. And when I make that impact, that's something that I want to celebrate, because that shows me when I'm making that impact that I'm going in the right direction and I'm delivering the information in a digestible way. But when I'm not making that impact or I'm not getting traction, I need to look at different pieces of what I'm doing and reevaluate that and adjust, so that way I can get in front of the right people and help people with the knowledge that I think could be helpful. So now I'm moving into a more complex area of trying to celebrate wins. Like if I get a higher percentage for my click rate, right? I celebrate that, because that means that like I'm talking about the right topics. That means people are interested in the topics, but like people aren't watching the video. I only have 30 views on this video. Okay, so how did I deliver the information in that video? Let's try to adjust this. Maybe I'm too eye focused. Maybe I'm not sounding coherent coherent enough in the way I'm delivering the information, because my goal strategically is to help other people overcome adversity. So now I'm looking at the different ways that I'm trying to accomplish that, and I'm rewarding things that are working. And eventually over time, those things will get easier for me because I'll know they're working well. But when they don't work, I'm making adjustments and I'm learning what does work. But I'm still going to celebrate this process until things click. Because once things click, then I'm going to have a recipe that I can utilize for my type of content and my type of target audience that's going to work consistently. But it takes rewarding those behaviors that I'm doing, which is even acknowledging that maybe I can improve if it's something that I've been struggling with, and then moving down the path to make that improvement and implement some type of change. And that type of reward feels good because I can see objectively through the data that I'm measuring that I'm getting closer to my goal. I see that I'm improving my process, especially like when I found like my thumbnail style, I can see my click rate going up. I think eventually I'm probably going to want to adjust it even more because I think the click rate could be better, but we went from like a really low click rate to a better click rate. That's awesome. That's an objective goal that I can measure, and it makes me feel good because I know with the measurable data that it's something that is beneficial. And then once that is even higher, it's not something that I'm gonna have to think about or reward because it's just gonna become second nature for myself. But celebrating those small efforts gets you to that place. We wanna reward the progress on our critical actions, not just completion of the tasks, but more so that progression of evolution. Because when you fall in love with the process and you fall in love with creating the plan and implementing the plan, then you're falling in love with being successful, because that's what it means to be successful. People think success like, I'll be happy when I have this. And you're not going to be happy when you have it. You're going to be bored because you're going to want to do something else, because the whole point of why you would even go through that process is because you love the process, because it's a lot of work. So you have to fall in love with the process for it to be successful. The goal itself will feel good, but eventually you'll habituate to that goodness. But if you're constantly driving for more progress, more improvement, helping people, serving people, because that's really where our plan should be rooted in. Like, how can we help others? How can we help the people that we're trying to serve? Then you're going to start to fall in love with that process even more, because then you're going to see the impact of that ricochet over time. Making a plan is easy. Making a strategic plan to ensure that you're hitting the objective milestones that you need to achieve the goal that you're looking to achieve is easier, because when you get to the output of your goal, you're going to look back and see that you were able to adjust, you were able to celebrate when you were doing things correctly and grow throughout the process to actually hit your target objectives and not have the regret of just going through the motions and hitting measurable output that doesn't have meaning behind it. You have to remember having the meaning and inspiration in the back of your head will help you along the way, especially when you run out of that inspiration and meaning at some point, because when you're going through this process, there's going to be times where you won't have that motivation. You're going to have to rely on your self-discipline and your ability to consistently push through adversity. But a big piece of that is keeping that understanding of helping the people that you're trying to help with your plan throughout that process. Because when you have that inspiration tied to making a strategic plan, it makes it almost impossible to fail. Fall in love with the process. You will be able to accomplish anything that you want. And when you fall in love with the process of learning, you will be able to improve your strategy throughout that process, which will ensure that you hit your success. I'm going to link out an outline of this on my Substack, The Evolution Revolution. Make sure that you subscribe to that. If you enjoyed learning the truth behind the trends, make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll see you guys next time.